Would you buy a pie for a prostitute? Well, my friend did. For years, my friend's office was just off K Road in Auckland. And K Road in Auckland is a site for nightclubs and alternative life and prostitution. And over the time, he's got to know quite a few of the young women who are prostitutes. And my friend knew quite a number of them by name. And one evening he saw one of the girls and she looked very sad or empty, I guess. And he said, "What's the problem?" She said, "I'm starving." And so he said, "Come on in, I'll buy you a pie." And they went into a pie shop and bought a meat pie. Now, as it happened, he was meeting another friend of his, a minister. And the minister was on the opposite corner, and he saw what my friend did. And after he crossed at the traffic lights, his friend said to him, "Should you have done that?" And I don't know how the conversation went, but it could have been, "You're supposed to talk to that girl about Jesus and talk to her about stopping her life, not buying her a pie." I've been a minister for 50 years, and one of the things a minister's supposed to know about is sex and how men and women should behave towards each other. When I was a young minister, we had to have courses. A person would come and ask to be married, and so we'd say, "You have to attend my 6 weeks marriage preparation course." Actually, I could never make it go 6 weeks. We went 4 weeks, and it was a very uncomfortable time, particularly for the men. And there I was as a young man myself, telling them how to have a successful marriage. But, I found after a number of years that the people who went through my course got divorced anyway. And soon, it wasn't just me, it was the whole society had changed, and people like me, ministers and so on, stopped doing marriage preparation classes. Actually, I was very naive. I was over 30 when I first heard the word lesbian, and I had to look it up in a dictionary, and I was very surprised at what I read. And up till about 15 years ago, I didn't think I knew anyone who was homosexual. And sometimes the people that I worked with were colourful, and some of my associates would say, "Oh, that person's gay." I didn't even know what they were talking about. I just knew my associate was a very fine person and extremely helpful. My background, well, way back, is kind of Puritan. And the Puritans used to think that if you had your women dress in dull colours and in a certain way, that they would always be chaste and there would be no immorality. And now we know, because studies have been undertaken, that there was all kinds of immorality. And whether they wore brown clothes or black clothes, it didn't matter very much, because the relationships between men and women would still flourish. I mean relationships outside of marriage. And in recent years, in the churches I've served, and churches like them, women have been dressing in bright colours and they've stopped wearing hats, and actually I like it. They look pretty. My wife, Pauline, likes pretty things. Sometimes she would ask me, "Stan, let's go, I want to buy a pair of shoes." And we'd go into the shoe shop. And she'd say, "Which pair for me, Stan?" And I'd say, "Well, just think of this. What kind of shoes would Jesus like you to wear?" And point out some little flat heel. And instead of that, she's over at the high heels. And she said, well, I'm thinking of the kind of shoes Mary Magdalene might like. Well, Mary Magdalene, we know that she accompanied Jesus, she supported Jesus with some of her financial resources, she washed Jesus' feet, and she was a single woman. And apart from that, we don't know, but I believe that some of those parties Jesus went to with tax collectors and sinners, my guess is that she was there. Well, would I buy a prostitute a pie? You know, I don't know if I've ever known a prostitute. I don't think I have. I don't think I've had a conversation with one. I don't know any prostitute, but I've read lots of stories about women, mostly young, who have ended up in prostitution. And their stories are very, very sad. Stories of abuse, of exploitation, in some cases slavery. We read that Jesus cast out 7 devils from Mary Magdalene, 7 demons. I'm sure these girls that work on the streets must have many demons. And oh, if we could just cast them out. But I don't think that's going to happen with preaching or giving them advice. My friend saw the young woman. Maybe he knew something of her background, I don't know, but what he saw was a young woman who was very hungry, and it was an easy thing for him to buy her a pie. And in buying her a pie, he was offering her friendship with no strings attached. Do you think Jesus would have bought her a pie? Well, he fed lots of people. When they were hungry, he gave them food. And he knew about demons. He could see into them. I'm inclined to think now that in every person there is a child, and however they are living, it's an expression of whether that child is free or whether that child feels loved or rejected. I'm proud of my friend for buying that pie and that act of kindness with no strings attached. Maybe it will lead to something, but at least it is an expression of a person who cares for that person and wants them to be sustained in that simple way, but really sustained in their heart. My feeling is judging other people is of no value. You never know their full story. Be kind, be welcoming, and if what they need is a pie, go buy it for them.